What is good, rookies? Just a quick one on your late night for Tuesdays. I know we've all seen the headlines about Cyclone Alfred and the effects that it's had on opening round. So I just wanted to quickly highlight in brief what the changes are and what is unconfirmed as of yet. So at the moment, both Queensland games we have Gold Coast Suns versus Essendon and the Brisbane Lions versus Geelong Cats. They have both been postponed, which means our first game of opening round will be Friday night, where we have the Hawks. Now, the Hawks are really the only people I'm interested in that game because I want to see will they get back into my team. But first and foremost, with the Cyclone news, above Supercoach, if you are in the area that is affected, please stay safe. Please look after yourselves. And we hope all the best for those that are going to be hit by Alfred and hope everyone stays safe. Football is a hobby. It is secondary. People's well-being is first. With that said, Supercoach-wise, what does this mean? Well, it means that depending on what the AFL agree to do, we don't really have official confirmation on where they're postponing the games to. Both head coaches have come out and said that for Brisbane and Geelong, they prefer to move the game to round 3, which would eliminate the round 3 bye. This changes things for when we think about starting selections. In regards to the Essendon and Gold Coast Suns, not too sure. It's a bit more of a fiasco to change that layout. And to our knowledge and our assumption so far, they are maintaining their early bye. So let's play on the premise that the Lions and Geelong don't have that early bye. They don't have the round 3 early bye anymore. What does that mean? Well, it means we suddenly get to start some really interesting picks. I'm just going to go through these lines here, and we can just highlight a few. The main one in defense being Zorko. They have a really nice fixture coming up. They have just the pigman himself that is going to feast off these teams in the early fixture. Now, Cadeem Coleman is due to come back, I think around round 4 or 5, 3 to 5. The concern with Zorko is once Coleman does come back, it will affect his ceiling, essentially. Now, there are two ways to think about it. You still fade and hope that you get better consistent scores across the season from whoever you might start in Zorko's place. Could be a Whitfield, could be a Clark, for example. However, if you are choosing Zorko, which I am heavily considering, you're aiming to get the spike scores that he'll have to really start your season off well. And then if Coleman does affect his score, you can potentially, trade him, move him around, or if he actually does maintain some scoreability with Cadeem Coleman in the team, you're pretty happy. What else do we have in the back line? Well, Holmes. Holmes is that really sweet spot of a undervalued primo. I wouldn't say fallen because he hasn't reached ultimate primo status before, but he's at that really juicy price at about 533. Fixes a lot of our problems in the defensive line of trying to find value. I think Holmes is very much an answer to that question and that equation. And Stewart is as well. Stewart's getting a bit slept on. I think Stewart is just tried and true with his Supercoach ability, scoring ability. We can see the role's still there, and he might interchange with Holmes in regards to CBAs and kind of some mid-time, which does work for both of them. Both of these guys can do quite well. So, if you want a bit of a pod and you want to go Geelong, definitely look at Stewart. If you want to go with a group, you can see Max Holmes is currently at 25%. That's something to consider as well. I wouldn't be looking at Humphreys, for example. SDK, all things out of Geelong is simply he might get ruck time. And they believe him to be one of the best defenders that they can put on the team and in the league. They can make him one of the best. So I'd steer clear. The only other hope we have is O'Sullivan. Now, with this one, it is a bit tricky because we believe he's rested, but does he get named? We don't get a free look at him anymore, and that is the consideration, is we don't get a free look in opening round anymore, but we do get to start them without an early bye. So Sullivan's still on the watch list, but purely for team sheets, and see how we go. Mids are the more interesting part. Mr. Neil and Mr. Dunkley. A lot of people, given the chaos that has reigned with Bont and Butters going down, are most likely leaning towards Dacos, who is currently at 62% last time I checked. And we can see that Neil was merely at 7% earlier today, and he's already at 19%. And I imagine this number will go up and down as people ride the hype of the move of the round change with the games being moved. But Neil is still putting his hand up to be like that M1. And what used to be a pod now isn't. The pod that I like is Dunkley. I think Dunkley is very underrated. I think he's getting overlooked massively. I'm personally heavily considering starting him at my M1. If you did follow me on X, you would have seen a little team preview in this overlay, which I hope you guys are enjoying. Just something to help the eyes. We don't want to strain the eyes with bright screens all the time, and it's a little bit easier to manage. I don't have to cut off half the screen with the webcam, and my Tom Stewart-like looks. I'm ready to be drafted Geelong. But you've got some options now. We've got more flexibility, more movement in regards to some options. The other people to consider with Brisbane and the midfield and Geelong Cats is the Ashcroft brothers. They now also miss an early bye if they're playing in round 3. So definitely give them a look and a bit of a shout. Will Ashcroft is still at 21%. I know that Levi is 66%. A lot of people are starting him, and we know why, along with Nevitt as well. These ones we weren't necessarily watching too closely. We're pretty confident in those 3 picks. If you most likely already had them in your team, irrespective of what was happening, but something to consider. The only other option to really speak about there is Mr. Basilinka, Mr. Smith. I personally wanted to watch him because he is 61% owned, and I'm still not totally convinced and potentially anti-potting him. So not good for me because I wanted to see what the go was with his role and how many CBAs he was going to get, but we may not get that, so I might just have to stomach an anti-pod because I'm still not convinced. With all that said, very curious to see what these changes have done to your team. If you've had to clear team like you can see here, to look at a restructure so you can bring in Neil or Zorko, strengthen up that back line, or get another M1 and M2. And if you're just convinced by Basilinka, I'm very torn on getting Bailey in. Very, very torn. With that said, guys, let me know what you think about the new overlay. Is there anything missing? Is it easy? Can you guys read enough on the screen on this side? Camera's flipped. And over time, this overlay will change. There'll be different overlays depending on what information we're looking at, but this will be the most common one. So appreciate all that have given some feedback on X as well in regards to the overlay. I very much appreciate it. We're almost at 250 subscribers. We're about 11 away. So if you haven't hit that sub button, go ahead and hit that now. It means the world to me. If you haven't followed me on X, go do that as well. And first and foremost, if you know someone in the areas that are going to be affected by Cyclone Alfred, give them your best wishes, check in on them, make sure they're prepared, make sure they're safe. I'll see you guys in the next one.